Next is national do not call rules. Like lead-based paint, the fines for not observing do not call regulation can cost $11,000, and we don't have E&O for that. Now, sometimes when I talk about do not call to real estate agents or prospective real estate agents, it's kind of like telling my teenager there is a federal do not clean up your room law. Well, that's great because they didn't want to clean up the room anyway. But it is good business to prospect and to pick up the phone and call people. And but if they're on the do not call list, we all enjoy being on the do not call list and minimizing the marketers' calls to our house. But there are exceptions to the do not call list. The first one is you're free to call somebody who's on the do not call list if you have prior express written permission. Now, how could you have that? Let's say that you've held open house and you've got a sign-in sheet up there, and on the top of the sheet it's that you've written, please sign in, give me your name and your number so I can follow back up with you, and they do that. That's prior express written permission. Can't imagine other ways. If they want to send you a letter saying please call me, I guess that could happen too. But if they've done that with you, you're free to call them. The second exception is if you have an established business relationship with these people. Now, what would an established business relationship be? Well, you have up to 18 months after you've done a transaction with them. And so that's pretty clear when you have an established business relationship. You sold them the house, you can call them for free. If somebody just calls you and they say, Jim, we're calling about your house at 123 Main Street, could you tell us about it? Yeah, let me get the information, I'll call you back. You're free to call them up for 3 months. You get around their do not call list because they've made an inquiry to you, so you can follow up with them that way. And then last is do you have a personal relationship? If you have a personal relationship, you can call them anytime, regardless of the do not call list. So it kind of comes down to how do you know if you have a personal relationship? Well, if I call you up and say, hello, Mr. and Ms. Home Seller, this is Jim Dye. And you say, Jim, who? Well, that's probably a pretty good clue that I don't have a personal relationship with you. And it might be good for me to back up really fast. If it comes down to what do they expect and how do they respond to you will determine whether you have a personal relationship or not. Now, when you make that phone call, there are some things you need to do. You need to give the name of the individual caller. That would be you. Give your name. Maybe identify the person or entity on whose behalf you're calling. I'd say, hi, this is Jim Dye, and I'm with Realty South. And perhaps you give a phone number or an address which you can be contacted. Now, a lot of our phone calls, they don't get that. You don't get into that. They don't get that far. But you have to be willing and able and ready to do that to comply with the law. I want to be clear on do not call that. From a realism standpoint, if you are the National Rifle Association or somebody making 10,000 calls a night, you better comply with this thing every bit of it and don't miss a jot or a tittle. If you're a real estate agent who's picking up the phone trying to find people who are looking to buy or sell, the chances of you having a problem are very, very small. Most likely the worst thing that happens is somebody say, I don't want to talk with you right now, getting angry with you and hanging up, or saying, don't call me, I'm on the do not call list. If that happens, apologize, tell them you won't do that anymore, you'll back off, you're sorry, and be polite and move on. Make your next phone call. You're not a likely target just because of making one mistake. Now, the next question will be, well, can I call for sale by owners? This for sale by owners on the do not call list. Their name, the numbers in the yard, their numbers in the paper. Why can't I call them? They're advertising. Well, the answer is you can call for sale by owners who are on the do not call list if you want to show the house or if you want to inquire, get information about the house. You cannot call the for sale by owner or FSBO if you want just to sell your services. I can't call up and say, hi, this is Jim Dye, and I'm the best agent you're going to talk with the rest of your life, and I am the answer to your real estate problems, and let me spend 15 minutes of telling you why that is so and why you need to hire me now. That's a violation of the law. You can't sell your services. You may inquire. You may inquire if you can show you can inquire for information. Now, you can call business numbers. You can send them mail. You can knock on the door. You know, the do not call list says I can't call you from the curb with my cell phone, but I can get out and go knock on your door. That's not a problem. There's not a do not knock law yet. You can email. Unless the cell phone's on the do not call list, you can call them on the cell phone, but you cannot. But houses often are on the do not call list. Now, because most agents don't want to make telephone calls, the amount of prospecting done, I think, has dropped, and it is an opportunity for you if you are if you're doing telephone prospecting. Understand that you're competing with a fewer and fewer number of people. Let me digress back into sales for a minute here. I knew as a salesperson, there's basically 3 methods of contact that I could think of, at least from my generation. And we got email now, but we'll count that under mail. You could talk to on email or postcards, snail mail, whatever. I could send out 1,000 of those things in a day if I wanted to do the postage. Now, that is a way to get high volume of contacts made, but it's probably the least effective. It doesn't hurt. There's no pain involved when I send that stuff out. It doesn't hurt me a bit when somebody doesn't even look at it. They flip it in the garbage can. Now, the next one is the telephone. You can't make as many calls in a day as you can send out postcards, but it's a little more painful and certainly a lot more effective. If maybe I can only make 100 phone calls in a day, which is more than most people are going to make it ever anyway. But let's say, while I can send 1,000 postcards out in a day with no pain of rejection, if I make 100 phone calls in a day, there's some pain in that. People get mad at me. People hang up on me. But it is way, way more effective than prospecting by snail mail or email. The last would be, I always felt like if I could get face-to-face with somebody, I'd have a much better chance. Now, face-to-face prospecting is painful. When you're rejected face-to-face, it hurts more than throwing your paper in the trash can or deleting your email. It hurts a whole lot more than somebody hanging up on you telling you you're a creep. You're a dirty land leech real estate agent. Get off my... when they tell you to get off their front porch, that's the hardest thing to do. But it is also the most effective. And so you've got to think about ways you can prospect, ways you can talk to people. I operate on the basis that it's a numbers game. The more people you talk to, the more people you contact, the better your chances of success are. And remember, if you're timid, remember that timid salesmen have skinny kids. You need to find ways to get in front of people and ask for business.